Hi everyone, hope you're doing well. Now this video is going to get a bit morbid. I apologise for that, but I'll explain why. In one of my recent haul videos, I briefly showed that I'd picked up this limited series Rillington Place. And then coincidentally, I was watching friend of the channel Movie Bay, and he was showing that he'd picked up a whole load of indicator titles to try out, and one of those being 10 Rillington Place. And then following on from that, my last video was on the June 2024 announcement from Indicator about their releases. I talked about The Whole Truth, a John Gilliman film, but I received a comment from Cinema Inspired, who was just commenting that whilst he liked the Indicator label, he'd just like to hear a bit more about some of the titles. So here we go. I'm just going to combine a few different things here and make it a theme. So bear with me. Here we go. Now, I don't actually have the Indicator release of 10 Rillington Place, but I do have this DVD. 10 Rillington Place is a movie that came out in 1971, and it's directed by Richard Fleischer, a director who did a few sci-fi favourites, which include Soylent Green and Fantastic Voyage, but he also did another serial killer movie, The Boston Strangler. And he also has this film that's in the Indicator collection, which is See No Evil, starring Mia Farrow. But yeah, 10 Rillington Place is a really chilling British drama based on actual events. And it features probably a career best performance from Richard Attenborough. So Richard Attenborough, to many perhaps known as a bit of a lovey-dovey director of films such as Gandhi. But he was also obviously an actor as well for many decades. And he put in some really, really fine performances in films such as Brighton Rock, Seance on a Wet Afternoon, and Guns at Batazi. But yeah, I think 10 Rillington Place has to be the finest performance that Richard Attenborough put in his career. And it's a really, really chilling performance as this actual true life person, John Reginald Christie, who was a really gruesome serial killer who lived at this address, 10 Rillington Place. And the macabre thing about this film is that it's actually filmed at that location. So yeah, really dark and dingy house, really horrible lighting and wallpaper coverings on it, and these gruesome hideaway holes where bodies could be kept. So yeah, really, really macabre film this. It also stars Judy Geeson and John Hurt, really fine performances from them. But yeah, John Reginald Christie, he was a guy who tried to persuade women to come into his house, convincing them that he had sort of the capabilities of a doctor and he could help them out with illnesses, or even backstreet abortions, which were illegal at that time. But yeah, he would get them inside and then he would gas them and then sexually abuse them as well. So yeah, really, really horrible stuff. The fantastic thing actually about this film is that it manages to be really, really chilling without resorting to any gore or actual scenes of horrific violence or sexual abuse, although certainly you get the impression of that a lot in this. But yeah, it's a really, really chillingly told film. No music score in this, but yeah, it just manages to be really, really persuasive. Now, the interesting thing when it comes to how this actually turned out in real life is that John Reginald Christie was executed for his crimes, but so was a guy called Timothy Evans. And Timothy Evans was the partner of one of the women that Christie killed. But because things were so complicated back then with the whole issue of illegal abortions, Timothy Evans kind of got himself complicatedly mixed up in admitting to murder during this case, and so he was executed also. Now, the executioner in this case was a guy called Albert Pierrepoint, and Albert Pierrepoint was an executioner who worked from 1930 to 1956 and got involved with executing some 600 people during his time. So that then leads on to perhaps talking about this drama that came out starring Timothy Spall, which is Pierrepoint. And so this gives a dramatic account of the life of Albert Pierrepoint, like I say, a public executioner who during the daytime actually did grocery deliveries before then going off to prisons and carrying out these executions. For him, it was very much a matter of pride to get these executions done properly, and he could do them in a very timely fashion, really a case of just bringing people out of their cells, walking them to the hangman's noose, making sure that a bag was over their head, making sure the noose was around their neck properly, and then pulling a lever that made them fall to their death, and doing it in a way that prevented much damage to their vertebrae. So chilling stuff, but fascinating also to think about all the different people that Albert Pierrepoint was involved in executing. So the woman we see here is a woman called Ruth Ellis. So that leads us on to talk about this film, Dance with a Stranger, which came out in 1985, directed by Mike Newell, and starring Miranda Richardson and Rupert Everett. And Miranda Richardson really gives a fantastic performance in this. I think it's one of the best female performances in a British film in the 1980s. She's really superb in this. Ian Holm also co-stars. So Ruth Ellis was a nightclub hostess, considered something of a tart, I suppose. And she got involved in a very tempestuous affair with this guy David Blakely, played by Rupert Everett, who was a racing car driver, but very upper class. And the affair was just fraught with issues. He would treat her quite badly. Ian Holm's character is this kind of puppy dog guy who just really cares for Ruth Ellis, but she's not sort of excited by him at all, and so keeps going back to David Blakely. But ultimately there's a crime of passion because she can't stand being treated the way she has been any longer, and she shoots him. And when it came to her trial, the matter was dealt with very quickly. It was basically a case of, did you shoot him? Yes. Did you intend to shoot him? Yes. Okay, you go to prison and you hang for that. So yeah, Ruth Ellis was actually the last woman to be hanged. So this happened in 1956. And capital punishment in the UK was abolished in 1969. Now, interestingly, in 1956, the year that Ruth Ellis did hang, director J. Lee Thompson made this film, Yield to the Night, based on a book by his wife, Joan Henry. So this is meant to be loosely inspired by Ruth Ellis, although J. Lee Thompson apparently in his memoirs has said it's just coincidence. But certainly there's a bit of overlap, I guess, in the character and the story in this one. This one very much involves a crime of passion also. But this is a really well-played drama. Diana Dors gives a career best performance in this. And I mentioned Diana Dors also because Indicator, in their June announcements, are going to be releasing The Shop at Sly Corner, which was Diana Dors' film debut. But yeah, going back to this film, Diana Dors' character in this, you very much spend the film with her in her prison cell, and it's quite an interesting drama this, as she awaits her execution, and there are flashback scenes as well as to give an explanation as to how she came to be in prison. But yeah, really well played by Diana Dors, and excellent direction from J. Lee Thompson. Now it's quite interesting actually just to think about J. Lee Thompson. I mean, here is a film which is kind of making a comment on capital punishment, and yet later on in his career he gets involved with films such as Death Wish 4, Crackdown, and Kinjite, Forbidden Subjects, both with Charles Bronson, and both involving Charles Bronson meting out his own form of street justice to execute criminals. So yeah, a bit of an irony, I guess, in that, but yeah, anyway. Yield to the Night, really good drama from 1956. Now, just a brief footnote is that back in 1951, Diana Dors had a co-starring role in the film Lady Godiva Rides Again. And the really fascinating thing is that Ruth Ellis also appeared in that film in an uncredited role. The film was involved with some beauty pageantry. So yeah, what a strange coincidence. There's no other relationship between Diana Dors and Ruth Ellis, and how she got the role in Yield to the Night, but what a fascinating coincidence. But just going back to Dance with a Stranger for a second, I should mention also that the script for that is by Sheila Delaney, a scriptwriter who's best known for doing the classic A Taste of Honey that starred Rita Tushingham. But she's also written a film that's in the Indicator set, and it was Albert Finney's directorial debut, and that is Charlie Bubbles. Just going back to Albert Pierrepoint, and another person that he executed was Derek Bentley, and Bentley's story is told in this film, Let Him Have It, directed by Peter Medak, who also directed The Krays, and this one stars Christopher Eccleston as Derek Bentley. Really interesting drama this. Derek Bentley was a young man who got involved with a group of others who were intent on carrying out some robberies. Unfortunately, one of those robberies did not go very well, and it ended up with the shooting of a police officer. The guy that actually did the shooting was too young to be tried for murder, but Derek Bentley got tried for being an accessory to murder, and the words "let him have it" were very key to the trial, because there was a lot of interpretation as to how those words should be seen. So whether it was "let him have it" as in go on, shoot him, or "let him have it" as in hand over the gun. So yeah, this became a very contentious one, and actually some 40 years later Derek Bentley got a reprieve for his role in this situation, but obviously too late. But yeah, it's just interesting to think for a moment about Albert Pierrepoint and the various types of people that he was involved in executing. So all these different situations, whether it be a Nazi war criminal, whether it be a crime of passion, whether it be a serial killer or something else, all these different degrees of murder, I suppose, and yet everyone having the same outcome, a noose around their neck. So yeah, fascinating stuff, but yeah, it is a bit macabre and morbid. Now, just going back to 10 Rillington Place, and as I mentioned, I did pick up this, Rillington Place. So this was a limited series that came out in 2016, and it starred Tim Roth as John Reginald Christie, but also Samantha Morton and Jodie Comer. So the interesting thing about this was a 3-hour drama that played out over 3 episodes, and it really gave a bit more time to explaining the character of Mrs. Christie, played by Samantha Morton, and also elaborating on some of the other murders that Christie performed. Really good drama this. It is well played. Ultimately, though, I do prefer the 1971 film for sure, but yeah, this was definitely worthwhile watching, and perhaps would be interesting for anyone else to watch if they do see 10 Rillington Place and enjoy it. But yeah, great performance from Tim Roth, but I do think Richard Attenborough's performance is the definitive one. And then just finally, a friend of the channel, Roger Kirby, he's talked on his channel before about his love for Noir City magazine, and he's shown various copies in his videos. And I actually picked one up a few months ago, this edition of Noir City magazine, and this actually has an article inside it on 10 Rillington Place. There you get to see Richard Attenborough in his classic role there. So yeah, this was a good read, and Noir City magazine definitely is worth reading if anyone's interested in all those kind of noir movies, neo-noirs and similar. So yeah. Okay, that's a bit of a race through. It is a morbid subject, I know, but I think it's quite an interesting one. Anyway, please let me know what your thoughts are on all of this, and please do join me again for some more videos, which will hopefully be a bit more light-hearted next time. Okay, thanks very much for joining me on this one. All the best to you. Bye-bye.